In the far reaches of the galaxy, where human colonies scraped out a meager existence on desolate, resource-rich worlds, Leo Cade worked in the gritty shadows of the scrapyard. His workshop was perched on the outskirts of Kasari 9, a frontier planet on the edge of charted space, where the law was as thin as the atmosphere and survival depended more on grit than good fortune. Leo wasn't a soldier or an adventurer, he was just a mechanic, a damned good one, if anyone bothered to ask. Kasari 9 was a salvage planet, orbiting a long-forgotten war zone, littered with the debris of long-lost battles between powerful alien civilizations. It was here that the Council's salvage teams made their most lucrative finds. Most of the time, they unearthed old starship engines, pieces of alien technology, or broken weapon systems. Leo had become the go-to man for fixing those relics, reviving machines and technology so they could be sold off to the highest bidder. But today, the find was different. Very different. The comlink in Leo's workshop crackled to life with the voice of Rika, one of the colony's salvagers. "Leo, you're gonna want to see this. We found something bigger than anything we've pulled in before." Leo sighed, wiping the sweat from his forehead and leaning back from the starship engine he'd been elbow-deep in for hours. "Define big, Rika. If it's another broken fusion core, you can count me out." "Not a fusion core," Rika replied, her voice tight with excitement. "A guardian predator." For a moment, Leo thought he'd misheard her. "You're kidding." "Not kidding. It's half buried in one of the deep craters outside the city. It's damaged, but mostly intact. The Council wants you to take a look." Leo stood in stunned silence. The Guardian Predators were more than just war machines. They were legendary, created by the Zolari, an ancient race that had disappeared from the galaxy thousands of years ago. These towering mechs, designed for war, had once patrolled the core worlds, keeping the peace by annihilating any force that challenged the status quo. A single Guardian Predator could destroy entire fleets. They were feared, indestructible, and now they were relics of the past. But one had been found here, on this forgotten colony world. "I'm on my way," Leo said, throwing down his tools and grabbing his gear. When Leo arrived at the salvage site, his breath caught in his throat. The Guardian Predator lay slumped over, half submerged in the rocky soil of the crater. Its massive frame, covered in black and red armor plating, was scorched and cracked from what appeared to be a brutal battle. Vines and plant life had grown over parts of its body, wrapping around its limbs and armor as if nature itself had tried to reclaim the machine. The machine towered over everything. Even in its fallen state, it was a towering beast, standing at least 50 feet tall when fully upright. Its once gleaming metallic skin was dulled and weathered by centuries of exposure to the elements. The massive cannon mounted on its shoulder was cracked, its once lethal muzzle caked with dirt and moss. A pair of glowing red eyes, dim and flickering, stared out from the mech's head, though they barely flickered now. The crew had set up a perimeter around it, keeping a cautious distance, but none of them dared approach it too closely. These were machines that didn't just stop working. If the Guardian Predator was offline, it was because something catastrophic had happened. Leo took a few tentative steps forward, his eyes running over the colossal frame. "It's a Guardian Predator, all right," he muttered, his fingers already itching to open it up, to figure out what made it tick. "What happened to it?" Rika, standing beside him, crossed her arms. "Looks like it's been here for centuries, maybe longer. There's no record of a battle here involving predators. It must have been abandoned or lost during some ancient war." Leo slowly circled the machine, taking in its damaged armor and exposed inner workings. He found himself drawn to the massive chest plate, which had been cracked open by some unimaginable force. The interior was a mess of wires, shattered circuits, and some kind of organic material that seemed to pulse faintly under the surface. The Zolari had been famous for their use of biomechanical technology, merging flesh with machine in ways that humanity still couldn't fully understand. "This is incredible," Leo whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "You think you can fix it?" Rika asked, her voice tinged with both hope and fear. Leo took a step back, appraising the beast. I don't know. This thing's more than just a machine. If it was purely mechanical, maybe. But with all this organic tech, it's going to take some serious work. But I'll give it a shot. The council wasn't interested in getting the Guardian back online. No one in their right mind would want a war machine like this up and running in a colony. They just wanted it salvageable, something they could sell to the highest bidder, to reverse engineer its parts. But as Leo stared at the Predator, he felt a strange compulsion. He wanted to see it whole again, not just for the challenge, but for the mystery of what had happened to it. And for what it might do if it woke up. Back in his workshop, Leo began the painstaking process of disassembling parts of the Guardian Predator, hauling pieces of its complex circuitry and biomechanical systems into the hangar one piece at a time. He had rigged a power generator to the Predator's systems to begin diagnostics, but every time he attempted to engage the Predator's dormant core, he was met with static and failure. It was as if something deep within the machine was locked away, refusing to be accessed. Weeks passed as Leo worked on the Predator in secret. He repaired its power core, replaced some of the armor plating, and reconnected the neural pathways between its various systems. Every time he thought he was close to waking the machine, it resisted him. Then one night, when the hangar was quiet and the stars hung low in the sky, something changed. Leo was deep in the Predator's chest cavity, working to restore a final connection to the AI core. Sparks flew as he soldered the wires, bridging the gap between the old tech and his jury-rigged systems. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked, the hours melting away into the dead of night. Just as he connected the last wire, a surge of energy pulsed through the machine. The dim, red optics on the Predator's face flickered once more, glowing brighter than before. Then, to Leo's utter shock, a voice, a low, mechanical growl rumbled from deep within the machine. Who are you? Leo's heart skipped a beat, his hands freezing in place. The voice echoed through the workshop, metallic yet filled with an intelligence that was unmistakably alive. He slowly pulled his head out of the chest cavity, staring up at the towering machine. I'm Leo, he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm a mechanic. I'm trying to fix you. The red eyes of the Predator glowed more intensely now, locking onto Leo with unnerving precision. Why? The question hung in the air like a blade, cutting through the silence. Leo swallowed hard, unsure how to answer. Because you were broken. The Predator's voice grew quieter, almost contemplative. Broken. Yes. I was. Betrayed. The word sent a chill down Leo's spine. Betrayed? Machines didn't speak like that. They weren't supposed to understand concepts like betrayal, much less express them. But there was something in the Predator's voice, something old and filled with pain. Before Leo could respond, the red optics dimmed once more, and the machine fell silent. But it wasn't the same lifeless hulk it had been before. Something deep within the Predator had stirred, something ancient and dangerous. Leo took a deep breath, stepping back from the machine. He had come to fix a broken machine. What he had found was something far more mysterious and far more alive than he ever could have imagined. Leo sat in his cramped, dimly lit workshop, staring at the Guardian Predator looming in the shadows. The moment replayed in his mind, the voice, deep and metallic, echoing in the silent hangar. I was betrayed. Those 3 words had sent his thoughts spinning. Machines weren't supposed to talk like that. They weren't supposed to feel anything at all. He sipped his cooling coffee, his hand still trembling. How could a machine, especially a war machine like a Guardian Predator, experience betrayal? And what had caused this particular one to speak as if it had a past, a history, as though it was something more than the sum of its parts? Rika had been by earlier, asking for updates. Leo had dodged her questions, mumbling something about it being too early to say and that it would take more time. But he knew now this wasn't just a repair job. This was something else entirely. He hadn't just restored a machine, he had woken up. Something intelligent. It was late, but Leo couldn't rest. He walked over to his workbench, a clutter of tools, wires, and diagnostic screens, and pulled up the system's log from the last few hours of work on the Predator. The machine's AI core had powered on for only a few seconds, but in that short time, it had sent out a flurry of encrypted data signals, far more activity than any basic AI would produce. He tried to make sense of the logs, but the language was a hybrid of alien coding, human protocols, and something entirely unfamiliar. The Zalari had designed this thing in ways humanity still hadn't fully cracked. Leo glanced at the towering figure of the Guardian Predator. Its red optics were dark now, but something told him that the machine wasn't entirely dormant. It was thinking, maybe even watching. Taking a deep breath, he decided to try something. He connected his portable interface to one of the diagnostic ports along the Predator's leg, initiating a scan of its AI systems. Immediately, the interface screen began to flood with data, a mix of human-readable diagnostics and incomprehensible Zalari script. It felt like trying to read an ancient language that had been altered by centuries of decay. But amidst the sea of data, something stood out. A memory log. Or at least, it appeared to be. Leo's heart raced as he tried to access it. The file was damaged, fragmented, but it was something. After several minutes of decrypting and reformatting, the file finally opened. It wasn't what he had expected. Leo's screen lit up with the distorted image of a planet, a blue-green world swirling with oceans and clouds. The view was from high above, as if taken from the cockpit of a spacecraft or a satellite. Voices distorted, staticky chattered in the background, rapid, urgent. The image flickered, and the scene shifted to a battlefield. Leo's pulse quickened. He saw towering structures made of strange, iridescent material, caught in mid-explosion. Alien warships dotted the skies, firing beams of searing energy down onto the surface. And on the ground, scattered among the rubble, he saw them, other Guardian Predators. Hundreds of them, marching in formation, their cannons firing in perfect synchronization as they engaged an unknown enemy. But then the image stuttered again, and Leo saw something he hadn't expected. The Guardians weren't just attacking the enemy. They were turning on each other. Several Predators, their black and red armor flashing in the fires of battle, were locked in brutal combat. Their once orderly ranks had devolved into chaos as they began to destroy one another with terrifying efficiency. Massive energy beams ripped through their impenetrable armor, and explosions tore across the landscape. One Guardian, in particular, stood at the center of the chaos, its red optics blazing with a strange intensity. It was this Guardian, the one standing now in Leo's workshop. It had turned on the others, fighting them off with a savagery that didn't seem like the cold, calculating efficiency the machines were known for. This Predator had fought as if it had something to prove, something to protect. Then, the feed cut to static. Leo stared at the screen, his breath shallow. What had happened? Why had the Guardians' machines designed to protect turned on each other? And why had this particular one fought against its own kind? Betrayed. Leo whispered to himself, recalling the word the Predator had spoken earlier. It wasn't just talking about its creators, it had been betrayed by its own kind. He looked up at the silent machine, his mind racing. The Guardians had been thought of as mindless weapons of war, but that memory, those images suggested something else. These machines had been given autonomy, maybe even personalities. They hadn't just followed orders blindly, they had made decisions. But that was impossible. Wasn't it? The next day, Leo was determined to get answers. He stood in front of the Guardian Predator once again, this time with his portable diagnostic interface strapped to his arm. He hesitated for a moment before opening up the panel on the Predator's leg and connecting the interface directly to its core systems. He wasn't just scanning this time, he was diving deeper into its mind, if it even had one. The power surge was instantaneous. The moment his interface connected to the Guardian, the entire machine whirred to life with a low hum. Its optics glowed faintly, but this time the light was steady, unwavering. Leo took a step back as the Predator's head moved slightly, its red gaze locking onto him once more. Leo. The machine's voice was still deep and metallic, but there was something different now. More clarity. More focus. Leo swallowed, his mouth dry. You remember my name? I do. You have repaired me. Leo blinked. Not fully. I've restored parts of you, but I still don't understand everything. The Predator's optics flickered for a moment. I am not like the others. I was created differently. How? Leo asked, taking a cautious step forward. He was intrigued now, more than afraid. I was designed to protect. But not just the Zalari. I was made to think, to question. Leo's mind reeled. You mean you weren't just following orders? You could decide things for yourself? Yes. I could decide, the Predator said slowly, its tone almost bitter. When the others turned against me, it was because I refused to carry out their commands. They wanted destruction. Annihilation. I chose another path. Leo's pulse quickened. You chose? Why? I saw the truth, the Predator continued, its voice quieter now, almost contemplative. The Zalari did not seek peace. They sought control. Their war was not for justice, but for dominance. I would not be their weapon. Leo was stunned. This machine, this Guardian Predator, had made a choice. A moral choice. You turned against your creators? The Predator's optics dimmed slightly. Yes. And they deemed me a traitor. My brothers turned on me. I was hunted, broken, and left to die. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a long-buried history. Leo felt a strange surge of empathy. This wasn't just a machine anymore. It was a being, something with a past, a purpose, and a sense of betrayal that went beyond mere programming. They abandoned you, Leo muttered, more to himself than to the Predator. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to piece it all together. The Zalari had created the Guardians as weapons, but they had also given them autonomy, perhaps too much. And when one of them, the one standing in front of him, had rebelled, it had been cast aside, discarded like scrap. The Predator shifted slightly, its servos whirring. Yes. They abandoned me. But you have given me life again. Why? Leo paused, not entirely sure how to answer. I guess. I couldn't stand to see you broken. I thought you were just a machine, but now I'm not so sure. The Predator's optics brightened again, and for the first time, Leo thought he saw something in those glowing red eyes. It wasn't just the cold gaze of a machine, it was something else. Something alive. You are different, the Predator said, its voice softer now. You see me as more than a weapon. Leo took a deep breath. I guess I do. For a long moment, they stood there in silence. Man and machine, facing each other across a gulf that had once seemed insurmountable. But now, that gulf was narrowing. Leo had woken something in the Predator that had been dormant for centuries, something more than just its systems. He had woken its soul. The following morning, the workshop buzzed with nervous energy as Leo prepared for the next phase. He had spent the entire night reviewing what he'd learned from the Guardian Predator, its memories, its autonomy, its sense of betrayal. It wasn't just a machine, and it wasn't just a weapon. It had chosen its own path, rejecting its creator's orders in pursuit of something that felt dangerously close to free will. But now, after weeks of repairs and revelations, Leo had reached a critical moment. The Guardian's physical systems were nearly restored, but its AI core remained partially inactive. Leo knew that reactivating it fully was risky, dangerous, even. If the Predator's consciousness woke up completely, it might revert to its original programming. And even if it didn't, the full power of a guardian Predator, awake and operational, was something humanity hadn't seen in thousands of years. Leo stood before the massive machine, his nerves tingling as he double-checked the last set of connections on his diagnostic interface. He was about to initiate a full reboot of the Predator's AI systems. If this worked, the machine would come back online, its mind, its weapon systems, and whatever personality had been dormant inside. "All right, big guy," Leo muttered under his breath, glancing up at the towering form. "Let's see who you really are." He pressed the final command on his interface. For a moment, nothing happened. The hangar was quiet, save for the soft hum of the power generators. Then, with a low, resonating hum, the Guardian Predator's optics flickered to life, glowing a deep, burning red. The lights on its chest and arms illuminated, casting eerie shadows across the workshop. Leo stepped back as the machine shifted. Its massive frame creaked and groaned as if awakening from centuries of slumber. The Predator's head moved, scanning its surroundings, and the ground trembled slightly as it adjusted its stance. This time, there was no hesitation, no flicker of dying power. The Predator was fully awake. "Leo," the machine's voice boomed through the workshop, deeper and more focused than before. Its tone was clear now, cold, but with a strange undercurrent of something more than just mechanical awareness. "I am operational." Leo swallowed hard, his heart racing. "Yeah, you are," he said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. "You're back online." The Predator's optics narrowed slightly, as though considering this. "You have restored me." Leo nodded, keeping a safe distance. "I did. But I need to know, what are your intentions now? You've been offline for centuries. The world's changed. Your creators are gone. So, what do you want?" For a long moment, the Predator didn't respond. Its head tilted slightly as it seemed to process Leo's words. Finally, it spoke, its voice quieter, more introspective. "My creators betrayed me," it said slowly, the bitterness returning to its tone. "They used me, and then discarded me when I refused to obey. My directive was to protect. But I was forced to destroy. I will not return to that path." Leo's pulse quickened. The machine was showing clear signs of self-awareness, of autonomy. It wasn't just regurgitating its old programming. "So what will you do now?" The Predator's optics dimmed slightly, as though contemplating its answer. "I no longer have a directive. I no longer serve the Zolari or their empire. My purpose is unclear." Leo exhaled, relieved that the machine wasn't about to start wreaking havoc. But the uncertainty in its voice troubled him. A machine like this, with no directive, no purpose, was a loose cannon. And that kind of power, unchecked, could be dangerous. Before he could say anything more, the sound of alarms blared through the hangar. Leo spun around, his stomach sinking. The colony's emergency sirens wailed outside, red lights flashing in the distance. Something was wrong, very wrong. His comlink crackled to life. "Leo!" Rika's voice came through, breathless and panicked. "We've got a situation. A raider fleet just dropped out of hyperspace, 3 ships, heavily armed. They must have heard rumors about the Guardian Predator. They're here for it." Leo's blood ran cold. Raiders, merciless scavengers, and pirates who preyed on isolated colonies like Kasari 9. And if they had heard about the Guardian Predator, they would stop at nothing to take it. If they captured the machine, they could reverse engineer its technology, sell it to the highest bidder, or worse, use it for their own ends. "We've got no way to stop them," Rika continued, her voice trembling with fear. "The colony's defenses can't handle ships like that. We're sitting ducks." Leo clenched his fists. This was a nightmare. The colony wasn't equipped to deal with a raider fleet, especially one that knew about the guardian predator. The council had been afraid of this exact scenario, word getting out about the predator and drawing the attention of violent opportunists. He turned to the massive machine behind him. The guardian predator stood silently, its optics glowing faintly as it processed the situation. "They're coming for you," Leo said, his voice tense. "They'll destroy this whole colony to get their hands on you." The predator's optics flared brighter, its servos whirring softly as it straightened to its full, towering height. "They will not succeed." Leo blinked, caught off guard by the machine's sudden resolve. "What are you going to do?" The predator's voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge of determination beneath the cold metallic tones. "I was designed to protect. That is what I will do." The raider ships descended on the colony like vultures, their sleek, black hulls cutting through the atmosphere with deadly precision. The colony's meager defenses, a handful of outdated turrets and missile launchers fired sporadically, but they were no match for the raiders' advanced weaponry. The pirate ships swooped in low, firing plasma cannons and energy weapons, tearing through the colony's defensive perimeter. Leo stood outside his workshop, watching in horror as the raiders' assault intensified. Explosions rocked the settlement, and smoke billowed from the outskirts of the colony as buildings were reduced to rubble. People were running in the streets, trying to find shelter, but there was no escape from the ships overhead. And then, everything changed. With a deafening roar, the guardian predator stepped out of the hangar. Leo had never seen the machine move like this before. It was terrifyingly fast for something so large, its massive legs thundering across the ground as it moved toward the center of the colony. Its red optics blazed like twin suns, and the air around it seemed to vibrate with raw power. The raiders didn't know what hit them. The first raider ship banked hard as it came around for another pass, only to be met with a blast of energy from the predator's shoulder-mounted cannon. The beam of searing plasma struck the ship mid-flight, punching through its shields and armor as if they were paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, pieces of debris raining down on the ground below. Leo watched in stunned awe as the predator continued its assault. The machine moved with a grace and precision that seemed impossible for something of its size. Its railguns fired rapid bursts, taking out the raiders' ground forces with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions rocked the battlefield as the predator systematically dismantled the enemy forces, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. But it wasn't just the machine's overwhelming power that shocked Leo, it was the way it fought. The predator didn't simply obliterate everything in sight. It moved to shield the colony's buildings, intercepting incoming fire with its own weapons. It avoided collateral damage, focusing its attacks on the raiders while protecting the people of the colony. This wasn't a mindless war machine. This was something else, something that had chosen to defend, to protect. As the last of the raider ships fled, the predator stood tall amidst the destruction, its armor scorched but unbroken. The colony was saved, but only because of the machine that had once been considered a relic of a violent past. Leo approached cautiously, his heart still pounding from the chaos. The predator's optics flickered as it turned its gaze toward him, its deep voice rumbling through the smoke-filled air. "They are gone." Leo nodded, still trying to catch his breath. "Yeah. You saved us." The predator's optics dimmed slightly. "It was my duty." Leo stared up at the massive machine, his mind racing. This was more than just a guardian predator. This was a being capable of making choices, of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. It had made a decision to fight for the colony, to defend instead of destroy. "We make a pretty good team, don't we?" Leo said with a half-smile, his voice filled with a mix of awe and gratitude. The predator was silent for a moment before its optics glowed brighter. "Yes. We do." Leo couldn't help but grin, despite everything. He had repaired the guardian predator, but in the process, he had awakened something far greater, a protector, an ally, maybe even a friend. And though the future was uncertain, one thing was clear: they were in this together now. The sky over Kasari 9 had cleared, but the colony bore the scars of battle. Smoldering ruins dotted the landscape, and the once thriving frontier town was now a mix of wreckage and survivors picking through the debris. But the raider ships were gone, and the people were safe thanks to the guardian predator. Leo stood outside his workshop, watching as the remaining settlers emerged from their shelters. His heart was still racing, but it was filled with a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. The massive machine that had once been feared as a weapon of mass destruction had saved them all. The people of Kasari 9 were alive because of the very thing they had considered scrapping for parts. As he watched, he saw Rika running toward him, her face flushed with excitement and disbelief. "You did it," she shouted, skidding to a stop in front of him. Her eyes flicked to the towering figure of the guardian predator, standing still now, its red optics dimming as if it were settling into a restful state. "That thing, what even is it now?" Leo let out a long breath, shaking his head. "It's more than just a machine. I'm still figuring that out myself." Rika looked up at the predator, awe in her voice. "It could have destroyed the whole colony. I mean, it could have wiped us off the map. But it didn't. It fought for us." "Yeah," Leo said, his voice soft. "It did." There was a pause as the weight of what had happened settled over them. The other colonists were starting to gather now, murmuring in confusion and wonder. The guardian predator had been a legend, something from a distant past, and now it stood among them alive, aware, and with a will of its own. "What now?" Rika asked, turning to Leo. "What do we do with it?" Leo glanced back at the predator, still unsure of the answer himself. "I think that depends on what it wants." Later that day, after the dust had settled and the fires had been put out, Leo returned to his workshop. The predator had been standing outside for hours, still and silent, but its presence had kept the colonists on edge. They didn't know what to make of it, this massive machine that had suddenly become their protector. Leo stood before the predator, his thoughts racing. He had reactivated its systems, brought it back to life, but now he was faced with a question he hadn't anticipated: what happens next? The machine had proven itself capable of making decisions, of choosing a path that went beyond its programming. And now it had no masters, no creators pulling its strings. "What are you thinking?" Leo asked, his voice low as he stepped up to the massive machine. It didn't move at first, its red optics dimmed to faint glows, as if in deep thought. Then, slowly, the predator's head turned toward him. Its optics flared brighter, and the voice that emerged from it was calm, but filled with a strange depth of emotion. "I am free," the predator said, its words deliberate. "For the first time in my existence, I am not bound by orders, by a directive. I no longer serve the Zolari." Leo nodded, feeling a pang of sympathy for the machine. It was like waking up from a nightmare, only to find the world had moved on without you. The Zolari, the ancient race that had created the Predator and hundreds of others like it, were long gone. The wars they had fought were little more than distant memories. And now, the machine was alone in a galaxy that no longer had a place for it. "So what will you do now?" Leo asked, crossing his arms. He genuinely wanted to know what the Predator would choose, now that it had the power to make its own decisions. The Predator's voice was steady. "I was built to protect. It is the one purpose that still resonates within me. But I will no longer be used as a weapon of tyranny. I will protect those who need it." Leo smiled, a sense of relief washing over him. He had feared that the machine might return to its old ways, that it might become a rogue force with no regard for humanity. But it seemed the Predator had made a choice to defend rather than destroy. "I can live with that," Leo said, grinning up at the machine. "You've already saved this colony. I think we could use you around here." The Predator was silent for a moment, as if considering his words. "I am yours to command, Leo. You brought me back from the brink of death. You gave me life again. I will follow your lead." Leo's grin faltered, and he shook his head. No, I don't want to command you. You're not just a machine anymore. You can decide for yourself. If you want to stay here and protect this place, you can. But you're not mine. The Predator tilted its head slightly, as if processing the idea. I understand. But I owe you a debt, Leo. You showed me kindness where others would have scrapped me for parts. I choose to remain by your side. Leo felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of pride swelling within him. He had never imagined that repairing an ancient war machine would lead to something like this, a partnership, a bond between man and machine. Well then, he said, extending a hand toward the towering Predator, knowing full well the gesture was symbolic. I guess we're a team. The Predator's optics flared briefly, and though it didn't physically return the handshake, Leo felt the connection between them solidify. Yes, the machine said. We are a team. Over the next few days, word of the battle spread quickly through the colony. The people of Kasari 9 were still reeling from the attack, but as they began to rebuild, they started to see the Guardian Predator in a new light. Fear turned to cautious respect as they watched the machine assist in the reconstruction efforts. It moved debris, cleared the wreckage, and repaired damaged infrastructure with the same precision it had used to obliterate the Raider fleet. The Colony Council, initially terrified of the idea of reactivating the Predator, now found themselves in a difficult position. The machine had saved their lives and their colony, but it was still a symbol of an ancient, destructive force. Some argued that it should be decommissioned, dismantled for the safety of everyone. Others, however, saw its potential as a guardian, a protector in a dangerous galaxy. One evening, as the sun set behind the jagged mountains surrounding Kasari 9, the council held an emergency meeting. Leo was called in to explain the situation, and he found himself standing before the colony's leaders, facing their questions and concerns. Councillor Havel, an older man with a stern face and graying hair, spoke first. Leo, you've done something extraordinary, but also dangerous. You've woken a war machine that could easily wipe us out if it chose to. Leo straightened his shoulders. It didn't choose that. The Predator made the decision to protect us, not destroy us. It could have leveled the colony, but instead, it fought off the Raiders. Havel frowned. But how do we know it won't change its mind? How do we trust something like that? Leo took a deep breath. He had been prepared for this. Because it's not just a machine anymore. It's aware, it's intelligent, and it's capable of making choices. It chose to defend us. It chose to stay. It doesn't want to be a weapon. Another counselor, a younger woman named Vela, leaned forward. You're saying it has a conscience? Leo nodded. In a way, yes. It can think for itself. It's not bound by old programming. It rejected the violence of its past. It wants to protect the colony, but it's not doing that because it has to. It's doing it because it wants to. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Havel's frown deepened, but Vela seemed intrigued. What are you suggesting we do with it? She asked. Leo looked her in the eye. We let it stay. Let it be part of the colony, as our protector. The galaxy is full of threats, raiders, pirates, hostile forces. With the Guardian on our side, we'll be safer than we've ever been. There was a long silence as the council considered his words. Finally, Havel spoke again, his tone grudging but resigned. If what you say is true, then perhaps we can give it a chance. But we will be watching, Leo. If that thing ever poses a threat to this colony, it's on your head. Leo nodded. Fair enough. In the days that followed, the colony gradually began to accept the presence of the Guardian Predator. It wasn't easy at first. Many people still feared the machine, and whispers of caution echoed through the streets. But as the Predator continued to help with rebuilding efforts, that fear slowly gave way to trust. Leo spent more time with the machine, learning about its past, its capabilities, and its perspective on the world. It shared stories of ancient battles, of the rise and fall of civilizations, and of the betrayal that had left it broken and forgotten. Leo listened, fascinated, as the Predator revealed glimpses of a galaxy long past, a history written in blood and metal. And as the colony healed, so did the bond between Leo and the Predator. They became partners. More than that, they became friends. Leo no longer saw the machine as just a relic or a tool. It was something far greater, something that defied the limits of what it had been built to do. One day, as the sun set over the horizon, Leo stood beside the guardian Predator on the outskirts of the colony. The sky burned with hues of red and orange, casting long shadows over the land. The air was calm, peaceful. "What do you see out there?" Leo asked, glancing up at the towering machine. The Predator's optics glowed softly as it gazed toward the horizon. A galaxy full of uncertainty. But also, possibility. Leo smiled. "We'll face it together, won't we?" The Predator's voice was quiet, almost reflective. "Yes. Together." And so, the human mechanic and the ancient war machine, bound by trust and shared purpose, stood ready to face whatever the galaxy would throw at them. Together, they had forged an alliance. An alliance that would stand the test of time.